But the one ray of sunshine in the shape of a Bandt is what the voters of Melbourne have decided to do. Now, they claim nothing's going to break up the seat of Melbourne, and the Greens leader and DJ and favoured candidate of people on social media, some people on social media, well, the numbers are not good for him. We've shown you them all the way through, and here he is saying that he thinks he's going to get there in the end.
A number of the lower house seats, of course, are now three-cornered contests, and so when there is a big shift from Labor to Liberal, from Liberal to Labor, it has flow-through consequences.
See, his whole thing, right, is as long as the fight ends up being me versus Labor, and the Greens always get the preferences from the Liberals because at the end of the day they want to deny Labor seats, he wins the seat. But the principal decision of the Liberal Party, which has helped the Labor Party at this election defeat many of the Greens that they have, or potentially this one, is that they put the Greens dead last, meaning that essentially the two-thirds, the even three here, ends up uniting to knock off the Green. Now, this isn't over yet, but it's on its way. I don't know why the count is so slow. Maybe there's other vote that comes from other places. But if one person is up by 3,000 votes a couple of days after the election, it is unusual if that flips anytime soon. So it was a dark weekend. I'm not going to hide from it, not going to pretend. I'm not going to pretend the Liberal Party did not get its backside handed to it. Or as I often say, in a metaphor that doesn't quite make sense to some people, but those who do understand it, well, they get it. They were turned inside out like an old pair of socks. No question about what the result was here. But a couple of silver linings along the way, they help. They help soothe the feelings of the past few days. Perhaps one teal gone, another won't get in, Lib over Labor in one seat in Western Australia, and maybe, just maybe, bye-bye Bandt. See what happens. We'll find out. As for whom the next Liberal Party leader is, Susan Ley, the current deputy, Dan Tehan, the current Shadow Immigration Minister, Angus Taylor, the Shadow Treasurer. That's the three. The suggestion tonight is that Dan Tehan is the least likely to be leader of the three. So does he get behind Angus Taylor, or does he get behind Susan Ley? Now, I'm not going to pretend to know the absolute inner workings of who backs who and who factionally this and who factionally that. But one name that has dropped out, it was first reported by Peter Credlin last night, reason why you should watch all of our shows all of the time, is that Andrew Hastie is out of the race. Now, I've got to say, I'm disappointed. This bloke looks great on TV, had a great result in Western Australia, represents a generational change, and I think would be an absolutely fresh face for the leadership. I also know that he's got a young family, and being a leader from Western Australia is very difficult. Why? Because of time zones, which means you've got to get up really early, and you've got to spend plenty of time on the East Coast fundraising, meaning time away from your family. But if you run for a seat in Parliament, one always presumes there's 150 people who think they should be the leader of their party and eventually should be the Prime Minister. And I know that the more cynical part of us will say, well, he's just sitting back and waiting, and somebody else can have the hospital passed of the next 3 years or the next 6 years, and then he comes to prominence. I don't like that attitude, and I'm not saying that is his attitude, but I say everyone should be seen who wants to lead today, tomorrow, or in 10 years' time should put up their hand to show that they should be considered in such a fashion. So I'm disappointed that he's not going to be running, but it seems like it is now down to Angus Taylor versus Susan Ley. Now, I'm not going to suggest which one should or shouldn't win or is or isn't going to win, but there are a couple of things that I think people should consider about not just learning a lesson, but be seen to be learning a lesson after an election result. Before a vote was cast, there are more women in the Australian political system than there are men in virtually every single state in the country. In fact, there's 9.2 million female voters, 8.8 male voters. And just to make my point one more time, of the 12 seats that the Liberal Party lost, all 12 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seats had more female voters in them than men. Nothing to see here. Nothing at all. To me, it seems fairly obvious. And again, I'm not endorsing, but come on. You want to be not just learn a lesson, but seen to be a lesson. You've got a deputy. Seems to me like a fairly obvious choice. But we'll see what happens, and we'll talk with either into the future. Plenty of people who are part of the Liberal Party have had plenty to say in the past couple of days. Here's just a sample of what they think went wrong and where they should go to from here.
Elections are bruising, and at the moment the federal Liberal and National parties have got soul searching to do.
In those communities which really do rely on work from home, it did do some damage. There's no doubt about it.
I think there are people inside the party that didn't want Peter to become the Prime Minister.
We are facing an existential crisis here. We really need to change quite fundamentally how we go about business.
I think the main issue is that we didn't have enough work done, and we had many years to develop policy, and regrettably there was not enough ambition, particularly on the economic front.
We need to listen to what the country are telling us, and through their voting they're telling us that they don't see themselves represented in the Liberal Party as we stand here today, and we need to understand that, and we need to move forward.
I know who I won't be supporting. I think when you've had roles leading what was supposed to be the economic narrative, when you were supposed to be putting together tax policies, when you were supposed to be delivering that sort of messaging for the coalition, there's certain people that I think need to do a lot of reflection themselves on what their role was in this loss, and perhaps putting your hand up for the leadership is not exactly where your strength lies.
We were let down by pollsters and strategists, which frankly gave us a bum steer of the worst order, and now we have the result to fit those bits of bad advice. Where was the urgent care clinics in the small communities? Where was our support for the Tassie health system? Labor did it, we didn't. We were ignored with our requests, and as a result we've lost Bass, we've lost Braddon, and I can't see us getting Lions anytime soon.
All right, some impressive haircuts and very strong opinions in all of that. Geez, I wonder whom Holly Hughes may be talking about. She's almost having fun with what is going on right now. But there is one group that I am not going to let off the hook. The pollsters who were so wrong, and I mean so wrong. These were the pollsters who were the private pollsters to the Liberal Party, the Freshwater organisation, and some subsidiaries around it. These were the people who claimed that they were 50-50 in lots of seats. They claimed that the leader was 5 points up in his seat when he was on his way out the door. Now, as we showed you on Sunday night, the pollster took to the to the Financial Review to say the 3 different reasons why they missed it, and they are doing everything they can to possibly save their backside. Why? Because there's a lot of money involved here. You lose a contract to be the pollster for a media organisation, you lose a lot of money. But in the same way that the Morgan poll told us that Mark Latham was going to be the Prime Minister, the Freshwater poll needs to spend probably 3 years in the wilderness. That's just the way it goes. They have to show that they get it right before they even get invited back into the room, let alone actually back into the heart of a decision maker when it comes to a political party. And nice try, the people inside either the Liberal Party or the polling organisation, who knows, who've decided to start leaking the truth that was really being told by the pollsters. When there's plenty of evidence that I'm pretty sure plenty of people will be willing to push back to say, yeah, nice try, saying I was always telling you were headed in the wrong direction, when the numbers night after night after night after night, week after week after week after week were wrong. Way wrong. So I get it, and I get what they're doing, and I get how they're trying to save their backside, and they know that throwing the Liberal Party under the bus is the way to save their own backside. But the reality is the reputational damage when you get it wrong. And this is the thing about pollsters that I will say I actually admire, is that we can tell straight up if they get it right or they're wrong. Now, we know that Newspoll, pretty close. We know that Redbridge, the people that we like to talk to, and obviously Kos Samaras has been a big part of our pre-election and now post-election look. He's a big guest on the show tonight, and we'll talk about how Australia has changed in lots of different ways. In fact, we'll do that in some detail in a couple of moments' time. They nailed it. Well done. High fives. You get to play again, and we trust you over the next 3 years. But the people who were saying as late as a week and a bit ago the Libs were going to win 10 seats, you're off to the wilderness. And no amount of trying to leak against the Liberals or the politicians who lost the election is going to save their backside.